The CEO of Google testified Monday defending the company against Justice Department claims that it is a monopoly. According to the New York Times, court documents show Google paid more than $26 billion to become the default search engine for certain phone companies and internet browsers. The Times says $18 billion went to Apple alone. For more, let's turn to Nico Grant. He's a technology reporter covering Google for the New York Times. Nico, thank you for being with us. So let's back up a little. What exactly is the main government claim about Google? And I'll just add on top of that, tell us what all those big payments, how they fit into the government's case.
Well, the core case from the Justice Department and about 38 state and territory attorneys general is that Google used these types of default agreements, including with Apple, with Samsung, with Mozilla, to try to make its search engine the default on their internet browsers. And that by doing that, they effectively shut out competition from other search engine companies. That includes Microsoft Bing, that includes DuckDuckGo. These are all other businesses that have a very small percentage of the search market. And so from Google's standpoint, these are ordinary contracts meant to distribute its technology in these partnerships. And from the government's point of view, this effectively is how Google has stayed ahead of rivals for now a quarter century.
And in this case, everybody's fascinated because it's Google. It's a name everybody knows. But the behavior you just described that the government alleges feels similar to the case that the government is making across a number of different companies and arguing essentially these companies are so big they can use their power and basically just their huge checkbook to keep keep their browser on every phone, keep their dominance in the market. Is that the connection between this case and all the other big tech companies?
Absolutely. This case is the first of what's expected to be a number of antitrust suits against tech companies. And so it really will be a test for Silicon Valley and for whether the Biden administration and government more broadly, as this case was originally brought by the Trump administration, can rein in the power of big tech. What we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years is that, these companies that, came of age in the Web 2.0 era, companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, have become so dominant, so large, each with trillion-dollar or near trillion-dollar market valuations, that they control so many aspects of everyday life for Americans. And the government is hoping that through this case, it could lead to more competition in the search market and in the tech industry overall.
And so, Nico, that's the government's case. What did the Google CEO say in defense of his company and against these charges?
Sundar Pais gave a full defense of his company, saying essentially that from his point of view, it's been on the side of consumers this entire time. He reminded us that Google was once a much smaller company and that it was innovations that Google had done in places like the web browser market with Chrome, which is now the world's most popular web browser, that it dislodged an incumbent like Microsoft Internet Explorer, which, he criticized and said did not frequently update and did not care about enriching the experience of users. He also pointed to Android as an example where Google made this technology for smartphones, decided to make it free for other companies to use and develop on, and in the process, he says, fostered competition in the smartphone market from a larger rival like Apple, which otherwise is making all decisions when it comes to hardware and software. And he said that Apple partnership that really has been at the heart of this case is very competitive, according to his view and Apple's, and that there's a lot of tension in the relationship with Apple, that he's not, in essence, paying Apple to stay out of the search market, but continuing a deal that has brought benefits for both companies and consumers.
Excellently explained. Thank you, Nico. Final question to you. What happens if Google loses?
If Google loses, there's going to be another process next year in which the government has to argue what remedies should be. Now, possibilities that are on the table that we can speculate are that, the government might ask these types of contracts to be banned, that Google can no longer sign them. A far more extreme measure that at this point seems unlikely, would be something like a breakup of Google or, a forced effort to spin off a division. That seems very unlikely, but it depends on how strongly the judge may agree with the Justice Department or the state AGs.
Nico Grant, technology reporter for the New York Times. Thank you so much.
Thank you.